I'm Edward Warfield, the publisher of City Biz, and I'm honored today to interview Antwone Harris, who is the Chief Planning Strategist at Platinum Bridge Wealth Strategies. Welcome, Antwone.
Edwin, good afternoon. Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. You've been in the financial services industry since 2005. In 2017, you started Platinum Bridge Wealth Strategies. Can you tell us about your career, the experience that you garnered while you were at Charles Schwab, and the decision to start Platinum Bridge Wealth Strategies?
Absolutely. My career took more of a circuitous route. It wasn't so direct. I've always loved investing. I started investing, started to learn about investing in high school actually, but I didn't have any money. So when I graduated college, I was a pharmaceutical representative for a couple of years, and I got a bonus check, and I started to invest, and I just loved it. I learned everything I could about investing. It got to the point where I loved investing so much that I left my job and went back to graduate school, and I studied finance, and I was investing through there, and I did some other work. I was day trading for a while. So I didn't come right out of school right into this field. I actually started my financial advisory career in 2003 with a firm called AXA. And I was there for a couple of years and kind of learned the lay of the land. They focused a lot on insurance, which was not my area that I wanted to focus on. So I transitioned to Charles Schwab in 2005. But that experience through AXA, where I was learning different perspectives and more areas of financial planning beyond just the stock investing, was actually very helpful. So when I got to Schwab, I hit the ground running. So I was a financial consultant there, and I specialized in working with high net worth individuals within the Charles Schwab framework. And I kind of grew my business from there. I had a very successful career, very blessed. I was very fortunate. I was a vice president and senior financial consultant with Charles Schwab, and I worked with clients throughout the country. And I had one of the larger practices in the country. I was ranked in the top 5% of advisors throughout the country, and I managed over $890 million, and I had over 340 clients. So I was very busy. It was very comprehensive experience. I've actually literally had thousands of financial planning conversations, retirement planning conversations over the years. But as my clients started to get older, those conversations changed. So the focus changed quite a bit. So initially we would talk about the market and beating the S&P 500. But as those same clients got older, the question started to go around, hey, I built up a nice little nest egg. I can't afford to lose it. What happens if the market tanks? How long will this money last me? Do I have enough to retire? Those were the questions. And then we went through the experience of 2008 and the financial crisis. So those questions were now manifest in reality. And we really had to navigate a bit and try to kind of take a different perspective. And it was a different experience for myself and my clients. And I took that experience and decided I was going to focus my entire practice on retirement income planning. And that's what I did. So I went and got some additional certifications in the distribution phase versus the accumulation phase. How do you draw down from assets strategically, and how do you build a practice around that? So I did that for a while, and then the goal was always ultimately to have my own business. And I launched my own business in 2017 with the focus on retirement income planning.
And so, what are some of the key milestones since starting your firm in 2017?
Well, when I launched, I had some goals established for the business, of course, and I blew those out of the water within the first few months. So what I really took from that, just setting some of those goals, was what has allowed me to be successful as I launched the business. And it was really the prior work that I had done before, and how important that was in my present at that particular time. I built some great relationships. I focused on doing a really good job, and without knowing that I was going to launch the business by a certain day, etc. I was doing that to service my clients, but I was able to galvanize some relationships, and I had a very stringent non-compete agreement, so I wasn't able to tell my clients that I was starting a business. I had to basically leave and start, and I was starting from zero. It was very scary because I'm married, I have 3 kids, a lot of responsibilities. I was doing well there, so it was a big decision to make. But I think the milestone that I'm most proud of is that those relationships that I built, the work that I had done up until that point, allowed me to launch my business successfully. Initially, I really just had a very successful launch of the business. Some clients came over of their own volition, but more importantly, those clients were so invested in me, and they were helping me grow my business. They were referring people to me, and they were getting me exposure to areas that I had no idea I would get exposure to, and I was able to have a successful launch for the business. I'm the rest is history. So I'm very fortunate and very blessed.
So, what are some of the services that Platinum Bridge Wealth Strategies provide?
Well, I'm a retirement income planning specialist, as I mentioned. So we look at everything that one would be concerned about when they're retired in order to have a successful retirement. So, of course, we do portfolio management. We manage portfolios for clients in retirement. We do comprehensive planning. So we do two financial plans. So we start with a traditional financial plan where you're looking at the assets available. You say, hey, do we have enough money to retire? Yes or no? That's a basic financial plan that you would get with most financial planning firms. I also do a second plan, which is a retirement income plan. And from here, we start to look at how do we strategically pull money from the assets that you've accumulated. We're in a situation where we need buffers in place because you still need to draw money down even if the market goes down. Like we're having a challenging period right now, and I have clients that are retired. I'm still sending them money every month, and you don't want to deplete the accounts while the markets are down. So how do we structure that? So we do a retirement income plan that focuses on distributing assets efficiently. I'm also certified as a Social Security expert, and I do a lot of work around Social Security planning. So when do you take Social Security? How do you optimize the Social Security benefit between yourself and a significant other, for example? I'm also certified in Medicare planning. So we do a lot of work around how to take Medicare, what program should you be on, what's the most cost-effective way for you to get your health benefits, what if you retire before you're Medicare eligible, how do we deal with that? So we do a lot of planning around Medicare as well. I walk them through a 7-pillar process when I'm going through my retirement income planning piece. And we spend a lot of time on qualitative areas like where do you want to live? What sort of budget scenarios might we model for you? Just kind of talk about what's realistic. And as we establish what those budgets are and where you want to live and what kind of lifestyle you're expecting in retirement, we make the portfolio conform to all those qualitative aspects that we discussed. So that's when we figure out how much risk you should take and what sort of investments are appropriate, when you should start drawing assets down. We look at that plan that we talked about, and then we just start to execute. So we have a list of the professionals that are important in your life. So your CPA, for example, if you have attorneys, estate planning attorneys in place, we start to talk about how to maintain your lifestyle. And then we talk about contingencies. What happens if there's a health issue? What happens if someone passes away prematurely? What are your legacy issues that we need to think through and deal with? And then we coordinate with those professionals to do that as well. And then things change. So we have ongoing meetings to make sure that the plans are still relevant, where we need to adjust, and we continue to execute from there.
So, Antwone, can you share one of your client stories as an example of a client that came in that you worked with and had just walk us through your ideal client and a case study?
Sure. Well, an ideal client for me, I have there's $1 million minimum for clients that come to me, and I would say a sweet spot would be between 2 million and 5 million. Those are clients that have worked very hard. They've been very successful professionals. They're typically between the ages of 50 and 64. They're looking to retire or they're already retired. And that $2 to $5 million area is where you have a decent nest egg, but you don't have so much money that it's a total slam dunk. You could still kind of go awry if you don't make the right decision. So I'm able to really add a lot of value in that space for those clients that are in that range. That's kind of the sweet spot. And one of the client examples that kind of stands out for me is I had a client that's an attorney, and she was about 2 years away from retirement. She was age 59. She wanted to retire at 61. She was married. They had no kids, but she was responsible for her mother. So she's planning to retire, and she has a mom that she's trying to deal with and figure out how to deal with the expenses for her mom. Her mom needed help, she needed assistance, etc. And she's trying to plan for this utopian retirement that you see on TV. Where you're on the beach and you're relaxing and you're taking trips. But then, as she's talking through retirement with her husband, he doesn't like to travel as much as she does. So we're thinking, and she's also was in a situation where she had a very successful career, but she had a lot of relationships that she was concerned about leaving. And a lot of her identity was tied up in those relationships, in her as a very prominent attorney. So we kind of modeled all this out, and we started with some qualitative conversations around why her identity was tied up in the retirement piece, and she's in the work piece, excuse me. And she was saying it was really the relationship. So I had another client that operated a nonprofit, and this attorney was a healthcare attorney, and the nonprofit was a healthcare nonprofit. So we talked about, hey, let's kind of eliminate the term retirement. Let's talk about phase two. You've built up a nice little nest egg. We have some money in place. You don't need to make the same amount of money that you made before, but perhaps we can do something in this nonprofit space where you still have relationships, you're still leveraging your expertise, you're still adding value. You're going to make some money, but not the same amount. You're pre-Medicare, right? So you want to retire at 61. There's some benefits that you could get through this nonprofit to help kind of bridge that gap before Medicare takes place. So I kind of put those people together so that they could speak and see if there's a mutual interest there. Also, her mother, the husband had passed away. Her mother's father, her father had passed away, but he was a veteran. So the mother was eligible for some benefits that she wasn't even aware of to help mitigate some of the costs, some of the healthcare costs for the mom. So we mapped out this game plan. We put the portfolio in place after this plan was in place, and we set it up so that she didn't have to tap the portfolio right now. We were able to build that portfolio over time. She was able to still have those relationships. Her mom was in place. She could work out the trips with her husband, and we put her in a situation where we relieved a lot of the stress that she was feeling from this whole retirement planning dynamic. A lot of people are concerned about the portfolios and the markets going up and down, but what I've seen, Edwin, is that a lot of people have a lot of anxiety around leaving their career that they've built up for the last 20, 25, 30 years. And there's a lot of psychological challenges that they're dealing with in transitioning and things of that matter. So talking through all those things comprehensively, you kind of play financial advisor and psychologist at the same time when you're working through some of these retirement planning issues.
Well, thanks for sharing that story. You compete in a highly competitive marketplace. How does Platinum Bridge Wealth Strategies compete in this hyper competitive marketplace?
Well, I think I touched upon some of this earlier. My focus is really on doing comprehensive retirement income planning, and many firms will do a basic financial plan and tell someone if they have enough to retire, but not many firms are specializing in coming up with comprehensive strategies for distributing assets systematically over time, over some undefined period of time. You don't know how long you're going to live. And when people start to think about risk, they think about the market going down. The main risk to your retirement is that you may outlive your assets. You may live longer than you anticipate. That's one of the major risks. And also, I alluded to this as well, the sequence of return risk. You retire, then the market tanks, and then you're pulling money out of the portfolio. So the fact that I specialize in that area really allows me to differentiate myself. Again, I do Social Security planning, Medicare planning. We're looking at things beyond the portfolio. And it's difficult for another firm to kind of offer that same kind of comprehensive planning and truly specialize in that area. So it's just like if you're, rewiring your house. You could have a contractor that does a bunch of different things. They're a plumber, they're building decks, and they're going to rewire your house. Or you have someone that specializes in rewiring the house. I mean, you're going to want a specialist to come in and kind of help with that situation, add some value there. So that's how I differentiate myself, and building those relationships is of paramount importance. And that's something that's hard to quantify, but that's where you're able to add a lot of value. I really care about what's happening in the clients' lives, et cetera, and we're able to add some value on that end as well. Truly knowing the client.
And can you share the growth and sustainability plans? I mean, it's they're there by yourself. So, what are your growth plans?
So the way I set this up was, this is a boutique firm, so I'm not by myself. I actually have a team that helps me in a support role, so they handle a lot of my admin, my digital marketing, etc. I've also outsourced my back office. So when I was building the business, I thought intentionally about, how do I want to build this? Do I want to build this big financial planning organization with a bunch of different layers where I get away from the client, and my main role is CEO of managing a bunch of other advisors, and which is a different discipline, a different focus, and a different way to approach the business? Or do I want to have that intimate relationship with my clients on an ongoing basis, which I find value in personally. I love doing it, and I think it's critical to really deliver the value to the client. So I said, I'm going to pay quite a bit of money to outsource my back office. So I have an organization that I contract with, and they're called Triad Hybrid Solutions. And if someone comes in place and they need information about insurance or annuities, that's not my area of expertise, but I have subject matter experts at my disposal that I could throw this case over the fence to, bring that subject matter on to kind of review all these things, and then execute. If I'm not a 401k plan specialist, I had a small law firm that needed a 401k plan. I have a team that specializes in building 401k plans, administering them, and then doing the compliance on them. I brought them into play. We put them in place, and they were able to execute for my client. So I have a pretty extensive back end, as if I were at a huge firm. But I've decided to remain, excuse me, a boutique firm, and very nimble for the reasons that I stated before. Also, my wife has a master's degree in accounting, and she is actually a part of the business. And that's kind of the transition plan. If something were to happen to me, then my wife's involved in the business as well. And then, from there, we continue to grow the business through the relationships that we built.
We've got some involvement in some nonprofit involvement, Bright Beginnings. Can you tell us about your commitment and involvement there?
Sure. So I've been on the board of Bright Beginnings for several years, and it's a nonprofit that serves children that are experiencing homelessness in the Washington D.C. metro area. It's a great organization. I mean, they help people that don't have a place to live, and they happen to have kids. And you don't when you see homeless people, you don't imagine that they may have some children, right? So we provide free daycare services for those kids. We provide counseling and training for the parents to help them get reacclimated to the workforce if they've been unemployed for any reason. And it's just a great organization. And I've done some work on the finance committee, and I continue to support them. I have 3 kids myself. I have 2 small kids, and they're in the flag football. So I coach the flag football, and I sponsor one of the local flag football teams as well, which has been very fulfilling. And at this age, my boys are 8 and 6. The parent is the quarterback. So I'm actually participating in some of the flag football stuff with my kids, and it's really good. And we sponsor a team, and teaching these lessons, and I coach the team, so teaching these lessons for kids as far as resiliency, hard work, focus has been really great. It's been a really good experience.
So, Antwone, is there any part of your story that you haven't told us about you'd like to share? I know you were a bit modest. You never talked about your Georgetown MBA, but which is obviously an important part of your background. Is there any part of your story that you haven't told us about?
Well, I think as I mentioned at the beginning, it wasn't a direct path to me being a financial advisor. I've always loved investing. So when I first started, I was building up a portfolio for myself, and I wanted to learn more. So I went to graduate school. I went to Georgetown. I have an MBA in finance from Georgetown, and I was captain of the investment team there. and I I didn't want to be in the financial advisory field at the beginning because you don't make any money until you build up your client base. And I'm married with kids, and there were some responsibilities that I have that kind of dictated some of my decisions earlier in my career. But I've always loved the space, and people always knew that I like to do the investing. So I left the job, and I was a day trader, and I had built up some money, and I was day trading, and I learned so much about the markets through that day trading experience. But I didn't know much about financial advising. So I finally decided to come over to be a financial advisor. And as I mentioned, I started with AXA. But AXA is more focused on insurance. And I didn't know that was their main focus when I started there. So I was hitting my head against the wall. But the lessons that I learned from being there, as far as just developing just my work ethic, I was also always had done well in school. But as far as just being resilient and just being focused on your goals and driving through those goals and adding value in different ways, I learned a lot of that through that challenging experience. So when I got to Schwab, I hit the ground running, and I was able to kind of take off from there. So it was all for good, all for the good.
Well, Antoine, I want to thank you for sharing your story, and may your assets under management grow and your football team expands. And so, again, thank you for your time, and we wish you the best of luck going forward.
Evan, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me, and many, many blessings to you and your business, and all the best. Have a good one.